bit of background to why I suddenly decided to get a Spark. So for those of you who don't know, or if you're new to my channel, I actually borrowed a Haze 7, a Spark, and an Alpha GTS in 2019 to do a comparison video. And back then, based on what my turning style was, I was actually used to a bigger and wider grip, and I actually found the Spark too small for my liking, and it was also too slow, while the Alpha on the other hand was just the fastest and the smoothest one out of the bunch. U3 in a single flick right now. And it's also the hardest to pop or to get a deforming lockup. And the act of suddenly buying a Spark in 2021 is not saying that I regret my decision. In fact, if I still had my 2019 turning style, I probably wouldn't be switching, but comparing now to back then, I would say that my turning style is actually quite different. Because firstly, along the way, I actually switched to a 59mm 4x4 and a 61.5mm 5x5, which were among the smallest on the market. It no longer became a matter of the Spark being too small, but more of a matter of the Alpha, or also the MGC being too big. So for that reason, I didn't want an MGC. So ideally, I would actually want a 63mm 6x6 and 65mm 7x7, but the Spark is 66.5, which is the closest I could get for a non-budget 7x7. And also my prioritization of speed versus weight between 2019 and 2021 is a bit different. So in 2019, I basically wanted speed, so that's why the Alpha is kind of the best pick. But here, although I still want a fast cube, something else that I prioritize right now is actually having a lighter cube, so I could last more solves in a session without being tired by the weight of the cube. Actually make the Spark the best fit except for a few problems, therefore leads to this particular setup. Materials I use to set up my Spark include pliers, max fleets, high viscosity silicone, not necessarily Kelvin brand, but this is what Cubeworks sells. Dignitas, silk, and DNM. Okay, so obviously not going to ruin my cube because I already did the setup, so I'm not messing with this, but I'm going to demonstrate the first and biggest thing that makes a difference to the Spark, and that's spring compression. What I did is basically identical to Chris Olsen's UCS spring compression tutorial, except for a difference in numbers, because the UCS springs are default 14mm and you compress them to 13, whereas the Spark springs are 20mm by default and I compress them to 90. So basically the steps are just to measure the springs with a ruler, and of course this is a different spring, but it should come out, the Spark spring should come out to 20. And then after that, you just put the spring in between the pliers and then compress them to the shortest compression. I'm not going to destroy this spring, but basically after that you just measure the spring again and it should come out to be 19. If it's not 19, just go and redo the compression until it comes 19. And according to the tutorial, you can actually stretch the springs back out if they become too short, but personally I didn't encounter a situation where I accidentally compressed a spring shorter than 19. And at this point, since you already took the springs out, you might as well just loop the springs. So just take out the high viscosity loop and apply it a bit on the top and on the bottom of the spring on both sides. Then after that, you just insert in the screw and put it back inside the cube. The spring compression actually turned the Spark from something that was quite horribly slow to something that's 98% as fast as my Alpha, and pretty much turned this with almost no effort. And it also got rid of the feeling of the layers trying to stick to each other, and the cube just glides much better. It still feels a bit tighter and has a bit more friction than my Alpha, but at the same time the cube is a lot lighter and I could turn it with a similar effort. The main loop I use is max fleet for the speed. For this one, just follow the lines that separate the cube into its individual pieces. So I did that to multiple edge groups in different places of the cube. After that, I added the high viscosity silicone pretty much in the same way as which I added max fleets, but this would actually make the cube smoother and a bit gummier, which is my whole point behind it. But it also has the ability to slow the cube down, so I use a much smaller amount so that I don't want to slow the cube down. Obviously, I wanted my Spark to be as fast as I can. Gravitas is another loop that slows the cube down, but what I did with Gravitas is really specific. I put it only inside the separation between the second and the third layer. Make the second layer slightly slower so that it matches the speed of the third layer, and whereas the outer layer remains the fastest, and this itself will actually allow the cube to minimize accidental double turns when I want to do single turns, which is really important for a 3x3 stage, and if that happens during a PL, your whole solve is basically messed up. So yeah, basically just add an extra layer of prevention for that. One of the anchors has a groove cut into it, and there's actually a short ridge here that goes in underneath that groove, and what I did basically was I took a drop of lubricant silk and added it on top of the ridge, because I'm not too sure if that actually contributes to the additional crunchiness that most chili cubes have, although it's like, but then like I just wanted to put some silk down there. And then finally for DNM, I just added a few drops of DNM in various places to make the cube a bit faster during the break-in phase before the permanent loops take over, but generally I would classify that like this step as optional, and I'm not much of a water loop fan. The major thing I disliked about the spark is deforming lockups, which at first I kept having the oblique piece and the T-center piece to switch positions, which is extremely hard to snap them back in place, but ever since I weakened the springs, it's possible to tension the cube much tighter while still maintaining the speed, so that's exactly what I did, and it basically got rid of most of the deforming lockups, and like it just caused the cube to become like it has much less room to flex, and like the pieces have much less room to slide out of place even. So for reference, this is just how tight my spark is right now. After setting up the spark to something that's really close to what I envisioned my perfect 7x7 to be, I actually got a PV single of 301 and also a 312 average of 5, which is also a PB, which beats the 303 single and 316 average for my output. And however, the real deal is just being able to do more saws without being tired by the weight of the cube, and yeah, the spark is basically my new main.